which will be at the Boulder Fringe this September. First off, let me apologize for these crappy production values on this video. I'm not a videographer, I'm not very techy, I'm an old person, and I just, if you can kind of block that out of your mind, and just listen to what I have to say about my show. I want to tell you about my show. The reason it's called the Center of the Labyrinth is because I am a labyrinth walker, and I bet many of you know labyrinth walking is a meditation practice. And first off, labyrinths are all over the world. I mean, they have found that labyrinth image in literally every culture on the planet, going back thousands of years. It's a very archetypal image, I guess you would say, and it oftentimes is considered a metaphor for life. So the meditation practice, which is connected with labyrinth walking, is a big circular pattern that is in the floor, and you actually step into it and you walk through this big circuitous circular pattern, and it is there's so many twists and turns that you can't really think your way through. And a labyrinth is not a maze, it's a path. You step in, you don't hit dead ends, and you don't get lost in there. I mean, you just keep going, one step, one step, one step. But again, the complexity of these big circular patterns, which I'm sure many of you have seen, this whole labyrinth walking movement just totally caught fire in the 90s. It had been sort of forgotten, honestly, and then it totally caught fire. And there's a very famous, beautiful, very complex, it's called a 12-circuit labyrinth from Chartres Cathedral, which is frequently duplicated. But it really caught fire in the 90s. And so this meditation practice is really about stepping in and walking, turning off your mind, opening up your heart, if you will, opening up to your deeper dream images, images coming through your imagination. Maybe there's a sense of connectedness to that, deeper substratum of life, whether you want to call it the divine or nature or God or whatever is a comfortable word for you. And you just keep walking and walking. And because of your mind being turned off, you have no sense of where you are in the labyrinth. You just keep walking, and you'll be, at one moment you're approaching the center, and then suddenly you're shot back to the extreme rim of the circle with no idea how you're going to find your way back. But you just keep walking and going around the corners. And of course, it's kind of obvious why this is an incredible and perfect metaphor for human life, because none of us really know if some of the deeper patterns that come out over the course of a lifetime. And we can't kind of cognitively, mentally, and rationally think your way through life completely or have it figured out. You're not going to have everything figured out because there's deeper pieces in play in human life. Not that we can't bring common sense into the picture, but it's not the end-all and be-all. And oftentimes when you step into the center of the labyrinth, it can be kind of a surprise. That's what's a trip, is that it can be a surprise. You're walking, and just engaging some of these deeper feelings, deeper images, maybe reveries, the past or the future. I mean, you just kind of let your mind and your heart and your psyche go where it wants to go. And then suddenly you find yourself in the center. And often the experience of labyrinth walkers is when you step into the center, there's a moment of integration where you get some nugget, you get some perspective, you get maybe an inkling of an answer to a question. And so I wanted to call my piece The Center of the Labyrinth, that because what I want to convey is about what I found to be the center of the labyrinth for me in my journey. And my play is not philosophical. I'm giving you this big philosophical background piece about labyrinths and the meditation practice, which is just by way of setting it up. The actual play is really just my story, my labyrinth, the story of my life as it's all braided together. And I'm an old 60s person. I was really on the front edge of the spiritual seeking of that time, the political unrest of that time. I was a very young mother at 18 years of age. I had 2 children by the time I was 20. And I joined an ashram. I followed a guru. I mean, I just have a very, incredible story to me, looking back now, all the different exploration and discoveries and experimentation and different things that I did over so many decades. And when I was in my late 40s, I lost a child, one of my children who was long grown by then. That is when I discovered the labyrinth, is I went and I took my grief to the labyrinth, and someone suggested that to me, and it turned into this powerful long-term relationship with walking the labyrinth and how it helped me integrate my grief and discover something about life and death and how they're interconnected. And I know this is kind of a big thing to say, but I do feel that death is a subject that is taboo in our culture. You don't talk about death. We speak about it in hushed terms. But it's very much a part of life. There's no single person who will not be touched by death. No one. Let alone, we lose our parents, or you can lose a sibling, or, a child, people, friends. It's part of the human experience, is this closeness of death that could come to any of us at any time. And my story is not grim or sentimental or, dreary and depressing at all. But I do want to engage some of these deeper themes around death, and I hope to bring humor and insight and what I have learned through my walking of this path, and represented, again, embedded in my story, not as a philosophical dissertation, but it's embedded in my story as it unfolded. That's the story I want to tell. Okay, I hope you can come.